30S Diesel Tech here. Thank you for tuning into one of my videos. I make a few of them on diesel stuff that I do, parts that I have to change, diagnostics, stuff like that. I enjoy what I do, and I've gained some knowledge on a lot of this stuff over the years. I've got Cummins certifications. I really like what I do. It's fun, it's enjoyable, and it keeps these trucks on the road. If you like what I do, please feel free to like, subscribe, give a comment down below. Anything to help these videos get out. Whenever I first started, there wasn't a lot of knowledge for me to gain except for from some of the older people. I've been through quite a few Cummins classes. I've done all the online training. I know a lot of the stuff in the after treatment system, a lot of things that most people don't like these days. Sorry about that. But if there's anything you'd like to see different, more footage, I try to make my videos as detailed as possible, but they don't seem to get a lot of views whenever they're really detailed, going in 30-40 minutes in a repair. But if there's something you'd like to see, if there's something you'd like me to do different, just leave a comment down below and let me know what it is. Also, again, subscribe to my channel. It helps get these videos out to other people, other technicians that are starting out, some of the people that are fresh out of school, some of the younger kids. Helps get them the knowledge that they need to succeed in life. Again, thank you all. I really appreciate all y'all. Anybody who watches my videos, thank you. Alright folks, we got a Inlet NOX sensor. This is the same unit that I just performed the update on. I've got the Inlet NOX sensor is flagging two different codes. The code that we were recommended to follow is going to be code 3446 in the Cummins analyzer. Let me get this on there for you. So 3446, basically the troubleshooting procedures for this is check for primary fault codes. There is no other codes listed in there, especially not 3232 or 3682. The other code listed in there is 3649. Since that code is not listed in there, we're going to go to step 2, ECM calibration revision history check. So we updated the ECM. The code did disappear, but that's common and that's typical to happen whenever you update the ECM. It basically completely reflashes it and starts it all over from scratch. Now, prior to updating the ECM, I did determine that the Inlet NOX sensor was defective. If you look here on step 3, it is after treatment intake NOX sensor malfunctioning, and there is no troubleshooting except for if it was flagged within the last 25 engine operating hours, which it was. It was flagged within the last hour of engine operating. So I did obtain a new NOX sensor. It is right here. Let me unbox this for you. So these are not really a pain in the ass to replace. It's just their location makes it not easy to get to. So you have your NOX sensor module, which mounts to the block of the engine basically, and then you have your piece that screws into the outlet of the turbo, the adapter on the outlet of the turbo. So I've got the other one broke loose on this piece here. You can see this is just basically kind of like a check nut, but this screws in. This piece here actually dips in side of the exhaust stream, and it measures the nitrous oxide that's flowing through the exhaust stream. So with this other one loosened up, I'm going to get it pulled out and get the electrical disconnected, show y'all how I replace them. We're here on the engine side, or the turbo side, the hot side if you want to call it, of the engine, and you will see right here is the sensor that we're going to replace. This is a sensor port that drops into the exhaust string, and this harness here flows down and ends up right there behind the oil filter. That is your module. So there's a plug down there at the bottom of it. Get that unplugged, get that module changed out. Just basically run the harness up, screw it into the port here, and start the engine up, let it run it through a regen, make sure that it's reading correctly, and go from there. I'm going to try to set y'all somewhere where y'all can see. There's not a lot of places in here because this is a very, very tight area. I think y'all can see right there. And show y'all how to get this thing replaced. So this is a special socket, I'll show y'all here in just a minute, that is used for these NOx sensors. It's a pain in the butt to get on, but slides on there. And you don't get much wiggle room back here. Usually there's not an air handler for box right here in my way for the AC, but this being a day cab conventional truck, everything's compact and the engineers hate us. So now these NOx sensors, they are smart devices, and these are one of the items that our nation has been able to find on national back order. Luckily, this company here has one in stock for this particular unit. So a lot of companies are having to wait 2 to 3 months for one of these sensors, but yet some of these bigger companies are able to keep these things in stock instead of having to wait 2 or 3 months with the down truck. Some of the smaller guys who don't have enough of a fleet to stock these particular items, because they're not cheap, are having to have their trucks down for anywhere from a couple weeks at a time to a month or two at a time, which is really hurting all the small businesses out there, small trucking companies. We gotta loosen up to get it out my finger now. So you can see this one's got a little bit of soot on it. I wouldn't say it's soot loaded, but there's little bitty hole ports in these, and over time these things will get soot loaded and start malfunctioning. Free. Alright, now now to take you down to the bottom where the sensor is, or where the module is. So most of this stuff I have to do by feel, because you really can't get in there and get your body in because of the frame rails and everything that's in your way. I don't know if y'all can see that. Probably have to set y'all up on the concrete. Alright, y'all stable? Okay. So this is the module right here that we're needing to replace for your NOx sensor. Typically what I will do is I will take these two bolts out, just drop this whole bracket down, makes it much easier to get to anything. And then just put two new zip ties here and here. That means we got to get this out too. Let me get my sockets. Cut this zip tie so where we can move the harness out of the way. Anytime you're cutting zip ties on trucks, please be very cautious, because you could cut into the harness, and if you do that, you have a whole new set of problems, because now you're doing harness overlays or harness repairs, and that really sucks. Alright. So, it should be a 17, maybe a 16. 17. Is free. Put that bolt aside. Don't lose it. You're gonna need to put it back. Grab a 13. Break this one loose. Break this one loose. See, the module bracket just simply drops down, and you got all your ties up top loose. The sensor piece comes out. Now this is a securing device, a locking device for the sensor. You can typically take a Oh, you couldn't even see that, could you? Oh, yo. Dang. So this is the securing device what locks the sensor plug in place. These things are usually pretty tight from being on the side of the engine. Typically a pain in the butt to get free. So you take these, just kind of wiggle it back and forth, or use a flathead. Come on, baby. So you can see how that slid right out. Once that slides out, it allows the plug to come right off, and now you have your sensor module in hand. Okay. Put this down here on the ground, or we can work a little easier. Not over the head. So now we got to get this bolt and this bolt out. Once those are removed, the module will come off the module mounts. Get a 10mm, the infamous 10mm. Nope, 8. My apologies. Right there. This other one. And there you go. We got our sensor off, our module off. Go get the new one, bring it right back. So we got the new module. We've got the sensor housing bracket. Typically what I do is I go ahead and run these zip ties through these little eyelets. It makes it a lot easier whenever you're trying to put stuff back together. You don't have to try to finger these through. So go ahead and just put them damn near all the way through, leaving about ½ inch or so, 3/4 of an inch sticking out. You're going to take your new module, mount it up. These new conventional trucks don't give you much room to work with as far as room to breathe, especially somebody with a dad bod. This it. Drive those in. Get them a little snug. Now we can put this piece back up. Change this out for our 13. And we'll find a way that y'all could sit up here and watch. I didn't like that last mount y'all ran, but we're gonna have to use it again. Okay. So now take this plug, go ahead and stick it on there, and then just close this. And as that is closing, it engages into the sensor, slides down further, and then you hear the locking noise. That's it, being secured in place. Now, take our 13 hip bolts. Make sure your zip ties don't fall in behind it. And then get them a little snug. If you can get on it. There we go. Before we put that other bracket on, Go ahead and tighten up these zip ties. Get that bracket put back on. Baby snug. Then you can get this in fed up to the turbo. Get that baby put on. Guys out here, that might be a little bit better view of the sensor port. So reach around down here and find our sensor. Make sure we got the routing right. Run it up. We got our sensor. Pull the cap off, drop it into the port hole, get it screwed in, get it started. Get all this stuff secured. It's got two different little securing brackets. One's down here on the back side of the turbo. It's not easy to get to. Put that in place. This one put up here. Clip. Now for the fun part. Driving this sumbitch home. Sensor's tight. Give it just a little bit more. And that beast is in. Just for reference, I'll give y'all a view of what I can see whenever I'm working on these. It's this right here. That's my view. So reaching back behind there, you get what's called unrealized hazards. And that's where you bust your knuckles open. Yeah. That's why all mechanics think that engineers hate them. Because they do shit like that. They put this big air handler box right in the way. But as you can see, we got our sensor module installed there. We got the harness ran up, we got both secured areas locked in place. We got the sensor tight. So now we can start the unit up. Make sure that the code don't come back. Put all the tools up. Grab the sockets. Now the old sensor does have to go back as a core. And this is really kind of typical. So Cummins actually rebuilds these things. So they accept the cores back, they rebuild them, and then you probably get it back couple years later whenever you're working on another truck. You never know if it was one of the same ones you pulled off. They clean all the paint off, get them nice and shiny, replace the harness on it, replace the heaters in them, sensor tips, probably do some repairs to the modules inside. Who knows? Who cares? All I know is they need to get more parts in stock. Oh yeah, fun fact, Cummins has actually started charging for the boxes that these come in. I think that's pretty ridiculous. But I guess whenever there's a shortage, there's a shortage. Alright, unit number 69409. Core. So I like to write on the boxes. That way whenever they get them back, they gotta find a way to get the writing off. So let's get our Nexit connected. Alright, insight's open back up. Connect. We're going to change this to Bluetooth. So I only use a USB cable if I'm changing anything in features and parameters, or if I'm recalibrating an engine. If I'm checking fault codes, running diagnostic tests, monitoring the engine while it's running during a regen, whatever it may be, I'll typically use Bluetooth. And the reason I do that is there's no harm to the ECM. You still get your accurate reading. And in all reality, I mean, my computer is maybe 6-7 feet away from the Nexic itself, so it's going to read just fine. It's going to give me all the data that I need. A lot of people say that they don't trust it Bluetooth. Well, get with the times. Alright, this is 2022. Shit works better than it did back in the 80s, okay? I will say that connecting Bluetooth does take probably about 30 seconds longer than it does with the cable itself, the USB cable. 30 seconds, it doesn't bother me. I mean, I've got the heater going on my truck. It's 49 degrees outside. I'm comfortable. I don't have to worry about my door being open. I don't have to worry about external sounds. If I have the engine running in a regen, of course it's going to be loud as hell. I can monitor it with the peace of quiet in the cab of my truck. And I can close the door all the way without the fear of damaging the USB cable. So the connection has been made. Now we're going to create a new work order or ECM image. I typically do this every single time, no matter what I'm doing to a truck. Anytime I connect to it, I will create an image. And the main reason is if something happens and you go away for a week and you don't come back to the truck, well, some other technician is connected to it and cleared all the codes that you were initially troubleshooting. Whenever you get back to it, your codes are gone. Well, you can go into your work order images here and you could pull up exactly what was going on with the truck at the time that the code flagged, which is very helpful. Very helpful. Alright, well, so with the update, it gave us this here: after treatment engine out NOx sensor test and after treatment system out NOx sensor test. So this is what they call your inlet sensor. This is what they call your outlet sensor. The reason they call them inlet and outlet is this is the inlet to your after treatment. This is the outlet to your after treatment. So what we're going to do is we're going to perform an SCR test. Now this test usually takes, I would say, right at an hour to an hour and a half. And it does test both inlet and outlet NOx sensors for readings to make sure that they are calibrated correctly and installed in the correct place. There has been multiple times that I would work on an engine and they would have an outlet NOx sensor installed on the engine. That's the sensor that goes on the outlet of the exhaust stream, not the outlet of the engine. So just things to look forward to. Typically, the best way to tell an inlet from an outlet is on where the plug goes into it. It's going to be the same plug regardless inlet or outlet, but on inlet they're going to be gray on the module. On the outlet they're going to be black, and that's across all Cummins engine platforms. So we will click next on SCR test, start the unit up. And we'll go ahead and start our test. It's probably going to kick it out because we're not at operating temperature. And it didn't. It actually started. You can hear the engine turbo spool up. So this is going to go over a couple different settings, or a couple different settings, I guess you could say. So this is going to run a test, get the system up to temperature, and it's also going to test the DEF dosing system. Make sure there's no leaks in any of the DEF lines. Make sure that the injector's not leaking. It's going to prime up the DEF pressure, which right here you can see it's sitting at 120 psi, and just basically make sure that it's not purging off or dripping into the exhaust stream in the decomp tube. Next, it's going to do an SCR deposit burn test. So any particulates that make it through the DPF end up into your SCR after they go through the decomp tube. And what this does is this burns off any particulates that are in there, breaks down the molecules and blows them out the tailpipe. That way you don't have CO2 coming out, you don't have NOx coming out, you have nitrogen, you have 98 to 99% of the carbon actually gets trapped in the DPF. So you don't have to worry about the carbon coming out. So you're getting oxygen, nitrogen, and basically water, hydrogen coming out the tailpipe. These are the cleanest engines ever. All these Greenpeace people really piss me off, saying that these trucks need to be more green. And to me that's bullshit, because you could actually run this truck in a shop with the doors closed and breathe cleaner air with this running than you would typically breathe. I mean, just out in the open air. So I call bullshit. They're making things more engineered and more complicated, more parts, more electronics, and all this is doing is hurting the small businesses that are out there. So sorry for the rant. I'm gonna leave y'all with that. Get this test completed. After it does the burn test, it's going to do the NOx rationality test. Basically test both inlet and outlet NOx sensors. And then it's going to perform an SCR catalyst test. On this SCR catalyst test, it's basically going to see how it's breaking down the modules, the temperature range from the inlet to the outlet of it. And if it passes, which 95% of the time they do, then it's okay. But if there's a crack in it, say they drove up a curb somewhere, that could crack the catalyst inside, which is basically a honeycomb brick. On the SCR, this is a single module system. So you've got your DOC, which is your diesel oxidation catalyst, first in line. You've got your DPF, which is going to have 2 diesel particulate bricks inside. And then you're going to have your SCR, which is going to have 1 SCR brick and an ammonia oxide brick. And all they do is just break down the molecules from the diesel fuel that's burning off and send fresh air out the tailpipe. So as long as it's sending fresh air out, everything should be good. So y'all enjoy. So it's been running for probably about 20 minutes now. I don't want to keep y'all on the whole time, but you can see right here that it passed the after treatment warm up and depth dosing system test. Right now it's running an SCR deposit burn test. It's in the running status. So this is heating the exhaust outlet up to 913 degrees, not 85. 985 is the inlet to the SCR. 913 is the outlet of the SCR, basically what is coming out of the tailpipe. So any deposits that are remaining behind in there, it's burning them off, turning them into ash. And see what our DPF temperature is. So our inlet temperature is 986 degrees on the DPF inlet. The DPF outlet, I don't know if it's going to show on here, it is not. But our DOC is sitting at 580 degrees. So, and when running this, you're also gonna, monitor the outlet of the NOx and the inlet NOx, and see what kind of variations you're coming up with. Right now, our intake NOx is 87, our outlet NOx is 56, and of course that's in a range as it doses more diesel into the exhaust stream, which this being a CM2350, it does in-cylinder dosing. Now on older engines, you would see right next to the inlet NOx sensor that I replaced, you would see a diesel injector. and it would have a line coming all the way from around where the pump is, and that injects diesel, raw diesel, into the exhaust stream. And what that does is that reacts with the catalyst face and helps heat up the exhaust system. The diesel oxidation catalyst that also helps heat up the DPF filter. So the outlet NOx, that's reading after the DEF injector. So DEF is injected into the exhaust stream in between the DPF and the SCR. It's injected into a tube called the reactor tube, or the decomp tube. Older systems, the 2-module catalyst, where you have your DPF and your DOC and your DPF, it'll have a tube that comes back around like a switchback, and that is your decomp reactor tube. That's going to have your DEF injector mounted to it. The old injectors are coolant cooled so that they don't overheat. The new ones are electronic modules, and they're actually mounted a little ways above the SCR so that the module itself doesn't overheat and cause it to start leaking. But that's in the exhaust stream to your SCR. So you got your DOC, your DPF, your decomp reactor tube, and then you got your SCR catalyst right below all that. The new systems are going to have your DOC, your DPF, your decomp tube, and then your SCR. So that's why they call it a single module catalyst as opposed to the switchback module, which is your 2-module catalyst. The 2-module catalyst, I mean, they're efficient. They do the job. They give you clean air coming out the tailpipe. The single module catalyst does the exact same thing. It is a weight reduction, a serious weight reduction. I think you lose probably about 50 to 100 pounds between all the clamps and everything else. Me personally, myself, I like the single modules better. They're easier to drop, and whenever it comes time for maintenance, if you've got to, say, pull the DPF filter out to get it cleaned, and by cleaning I mean either blown out or baked, depending on the vacuum test that you run on it. I like those easier. The modules are a little bigger in diameter, but I mean, in my opinion, they're a lot easier to handle. You don't have the big bulky framework. It's just a lot easier to access. Plus your temp sensor module, instead of having a temp sensor module for the DOC and the DPF and then another one for the SCR, you only have one temp sensor module on the single module catalyst, and it has 4 ports, or four sensors that come off of it for the 4 different ports. You got your DOC inlet, your DPF inlet, your DPF outlet, and then your SCR outlet. Your SCR outlet or inlet is actually calculated off of the DPF outlet. You get your DEF injected from the outlet of the DPF into the decomp tube, goes into the SCR and breaks down all the rest of the molecules. I have all this stuff printed out at home for how they actually work on Cummins after treatment systems. CAT may be a little bit different, but it's the same aspect, same concept. Same thing with John Deere and all these other manufacturers trying to get down to 0 emissions. But whenever you're pushing out cleaner air out of the exhaust pipe than you are breathing in the natural air, I would say that's 0 emissions. They're also now apparently wanting better fuel mileage. Well, we had better fuel mileage, and they reduced that by adding the EGR, by adding the DPF, by adding the DOC, and then by adding the DEF fluid and the SCR. You're adding more restriction in line, which causes the engine to basically use more diesel to clean the systems and to power the unit. I mean, after all the training that I've been through, it's not harmful to the environment. They want to get away from fossil fuels. They want everybody to run electric trucks, which I know there's some out there that are running these electric trucks, but they're not going to get the distance out of a charge that you will distance out of a tank. Whenever you're getting 1,000 miles to a tank, 500 miles to a tank, and you're only getting 300 miles out of a charge, of course that's dependent on your tank size also, that has a lot of factors to weigh in on for some of these companies, these smaller companies. Do they want to spend this extra money for an electric vehicle as opposed to a diesel powered vehicle? Diesel powered vehicle, yes, diesel has gone up outrageously under this new president. I wish we could get it back down. We need to start drilling, open up our pipelines, quit sending that shit overseas. But that's above me. There's nothing I can do about that. I can just keep doing what I do on a daily basis, work on these diesel engines, and learn the electric vehicle side. Eventually it's going to take over in basically all aspects of driving. You got electric cars out there, you got electric pickup trucks, now you're getting electric 18-wheelers. I don't understand the charging concept of it. Why you're going to go 300 miles at a time whenever you have 10 to 12 hours, depending on what industry you're in. Your time you can drive. So this is cutting down on the driver's time. This is cutting down on the driver's loads. But there's nothing I can do about that. I'm not an engineer. Obviously, engineers hate. Back in for a quick update. So our SCR deposit burn test, deposit burn complete. It did that fine. Right now we're on our NOx sensor rationality test, which is running right now. And if you look, our intake NOx is sitting at 614 parts per million. Our outlet NOx is sitting at 520 parts per million. Also, if you look at our engine speed, we just ramped up from about 900 RPMs to 1800 RPMs. And it's gonna run this test, and as it's doing that, it's monitoring the parts per million going into the exhaust stream and coming out of the exhaust stream. When diesel is dosed into the system, which this is in-cylinder dosing, so as diesel's dosed in, it's watching the intake NOx climb or decrease whenever it, reduces in-cylinder dosing. And then your outlet NOx is going to be monitoring what's coming out the tailpipe as DEF is injected into the decomp tube and ran through the SCR. So this is basically checking the rationality of these two sensors and how they react to the different amount of diesel being injected, the different amount of DEF being injected, and how well the DOC, the DPF, and the SCR are all running, how they're performing. So right now our SCR intake temp has dropped down to 378 degrees, and with the engine running as fast as it is right now, we have the engine fan on, which is typically always going to drop your temperatures. Our DOC intake, which is the exhaust stream inlet to the catalyst assembly, is 340 degrees, so we're dropping all the way across the board. And as this drops, our temperature's dropping, so it's not burning off as much as it would typically going into the DP or the DOC and the DPF. So just a fun fact. Bring it back for more whenever the NOx sensor rationality test is complete. Quick update. The engine idle dropped down to 800 RPMs. We're still doing the NOx sensor rationality test. It's still running. And with the decrease in RPMs, our DOC is starting to increase in temp. Our DPF is increasing in temp. We're almost 965 degrees. Our inlet NOx has dropped down to 84. Our outlet NOx has dropped down to 45 and decreasing. The SCR inlet temp is climbing and has now reached about 830 degrees. The outlet temp is on a consistent climb, 450, 460, 470, 480. So it's going to run through this program. It's going to heat up the outlet, and it's idling back up again. 968, 1010, 1046, 1005. So we're going to keep increasing. Eventually the cooling fan is going to turn on. Right now we're, wow, reading -4 parts per million coming out of the exhaust stream. I would say that's pretty efficient. Our inlet temp for the DOC is sitting at 580, 590. As soon as that hits 620, I think, 620, 630, it's going to kick on the engine fan into high speed. If it gets that high. Should be able to hear the engine fan when it kicks on from inside the truck. We're still dosing. Intake NOx 83, outlet NOx -1. So, if you read down here, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can. Alright, so our after treatment NOx sensor rationality test. I got the camera in my way, so I couldn't see it whenever it actually happened, but both NOx sensors passed. So that means our inlet sensor and our outlet NOx sensors are both working correctly. So now it's going to run an SCR catalyst test, make sure that it doesn't detect the catalyst cracked or clogged or anything like that. And it has ramped up the RPMs to, let's see if I can find my arrow. I'm sitting at 1700 RPMs on this test. And 618, 17, about 620 degrees. We'll see whether it doses enough or not to kick the engine fan on. The more it doses, the higher the temp. So I would like to catch that on camera. That would be pretty awesome. Whenever that engine fan goes into 100% or engage at 1700 RPMs, it's pretty loud. It's a hell of a wind gust next to it, especially with the hood open. out back once this is completed. This can take a while. Alright, bringing you back in for the final update on the SCR test. This is allow the engine and after treatment system to cool down. Okay. And you can see now we have our SCR catalyst test passed. The test has completed. Key off. Allow ECM to completely power down. Key on and restart the test if needed. Seeing how everything passed and was completed, we are good to go. So we're gonna exit out of there. Exit out of there. We're gonna log out of the ECM. Complete and close the work order. And we're done. So inlet NOX, outlet NOX, everything is reading correctly. We're good to go. It's been a successful repair. Tune in for the next video. God bless you and goodbye.